It's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, end zone, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here. Almost let the intro music run out there, but I'm here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com, 1069 The Fan mobile app. Also available on podcasts. We post our shows on our podcast feed. You can find at 1069thefan.com, the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Where you can also listen to the show live, and or wherever your podcast, Spotify, just wherever you want to find your podcast, we're probably there. We're even on YouTube. You can find our podcasts in audio form. There's no video attached to it. It's just a static screen. But you can find us pretty much anywhere. And however you're listening, however you're joining us, we welcome you on in. And we welcome you on into the text line, the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. If you want to join the show, even if you're listening on the podcast afterward, text something in. We'll answer the questions or discuss some of these topics. And for instance, 2444, texting in 10:30 this morning, saying, honest question, does USU have the best tight end room in the conference and maybe one of the best in the country? I have a hard time believing that there are many other teams with two guys of the quality of Lane and Sterzer, especially given the fact that their different strengths complement each other so well, with Lane being a dynamic threat in the passing game and Sterzer a fantastic blocker, though both are serviceable in each area. Not to mention some other guys who could be wild cards like Tua Tagovailoa, who seem to have great athleticism and upside. I'm very excited to see what this group can produce if they stay healthy this season. So I would very much hesitate to be putting Utah State's tight end room, as a whole, too high in the conference, and especially not that high in the country. Broc Lane and Josh Sterzer are good tight ends. I have not seen any indication that they are elite tight ends. They are good. At times they are great. Elite, again, I'd have a hard time saying that. I could see that more out of Lane because, the problem with both is that they're just not healthy. That's the main thing. It's like you see it at times out of both of them. A little more from Lane, but Lane is more athletic, and when you're a more athletic tight end, you get noticed a little more. And so it's harder for Sterzer where he's not as athletic. You don't get to appreciate him as much because he's not... You show up when you make athletic plays. If you make good plays, but you don't look good doing them, you don't tend to show up in the eyes of the fans. So I like both Broc Lane and Josh Sterzer. I'd hesitate to say that they have the best, one of the better tight end rooms in the country. Maybe in the conference, in terms of depth, and the fact that you have two starting caliber tight ends like Broc Lane and Josh Sterzer. Again, assuming health, that's kind of both of those players' biggest weakness is the fact they can't stay on the field. Those guys could start for just about every single team in the conference, barring a few, because neither of them made the all-conference team. I think Phil Steele didn't put any of them. He goes 4 teams deep. He didn't put either Lane or Sterzer on there. He might have put Broc Lane on there. I'm trying to think, but I didn't double-check this before coming on here. But here's the thing. Having said all that and downplayed Broc Lane and Josh Sterzer a little bit, I don't mean to douse the fire. But here's where you can get really excited about Broc Lane and Josh Sterzer. Because I mentioned they're both starting caliber tight ends. Even if I poo-poo the idea of them being elite or whatnot, they're both starting caliber. And I wouldn't be terribly surprised, especially for Broc Lane, if he ended up being an all Mountain West tight end, if he stays healthy and you see some good things from him this season. But the thing to be excited about Utah State's tight ends is their potential versatility in an offense that's going to have a quarterback that will run the ball a lot. Bryson Barnes is going to run the ball a lot. You're going to have a run-heavy offense, one that utilizes Bryson Barnes as a runner. One is, you should have a pretty solid 1-2 punch at running back with Javen Jacobs and Miles Davis. And so you're going to have a run-heavy offense. Not that they're going to be like Air Force and run it a bajillion times. They're going to pass the ball. But when you have two tight ends that you can throw out there, and so long as they can both be threats in the pass game, that could cause a lot of problems for opposing teams. Now, Lane and Sterzer have got to, fulfill all of that potential and be threats in the pass game, something that they've been a little inconsistent at. If they manage to be threats in the pass game, that makes Utah State's offense really hard to deal with. Because if you roll out a bunch of two tight end formations, which a lot of modern defenses aren't used to seeing, unless you're in like the Big Ten, if you have these two tight end sets, you could have Utah State throwing and running out of two tight end sets and causing issues with defenses who aren't used to handling that much size. And again, with tight ends, they're supposed to be faster than linebackers and bigger than safeties. That's kind of the ideal matchup problem that tight ends can create. And so if Utah State is able to create those matchup problems with their tight ends, defenses are put in a really tough bind because they'd have to put speed on the field to try and guard Utah State's tight ends. And that could end up having its own problems if Sterzer and Lane are just too big for those faster defensive backs to handle. And even then, if they put that speed on there, they can just run the ball. And that has its own set of problems. Or if they try and put more size in there, well, your tight ends are hopefully faster than the linebackers or sometimes even defensive ends. If you have the wrong coverage package, you have a defensive end covering a tight end, then that causes issues, severe issues in the pass game. Defending the pass game would be good for Utah State. So that to me is where I'd be really excited about Utah State's tight ends. Not that they're like elite and they're just going to beat whatever defenses. It's that I think Utah State, in the way their offense is set up and the way their roster is set up, can very much utilize the tight end and really should utilize the tight end. This is finally a year where Utah State can and should use its tight ends more. I know every year ever since I've been covering Utah State, it's always use the tight end more, use the tight end more, use the tight end more. If you don't got a good tight end, you don't use them. Because sometimes Utah State's had a good tight end, sometimes it's not. The last couple of years, they just haven't had a healthy tight end. The tight ends they have, the good ones, have been sitting on the bench because they're injured. So if you don't have a good tight end, you don't use them. But if Sterzer and Lane are healthy, then one, they have good tight ends. They should use them. But two, with a running quarterback and an emphasis on having Bryson Barnes run the ball more and having two starting caliber tight ends, that's something that Utah State should really be leaning on. It's not that should be like the bread and butter and build your entire, you don't need to build your entire offense out of running two tight end sets. It's not the 2011 Patriots or 2012. I forget which year when they had Gronk and Aaron Hernandez. But, the Patriots that year when they were running those two tight end sets, they were killing everybody because nobody was ready to see that. And Utah State, to some degree, could be doing that this year, where they can maybe catch some teams off guard with two tight end sets in fully capitalizing on the versatility that the tight end position can provide. If anybody else has thoughts, feel free to text the Young Power Sports of Logan text line 435-339-0321. I want to shift toward the main topic that I was planning on leading the show with today, and that is something that I wanted to talk about yesterday, but we ended up going into just more about, I suddenly forgot what we talked about yesterday. Oh, yeah, Memphis, and then talking about Utah State football, their roster. I can't remember things very well at all. But, yeah, just wanted to look at the Summer League, and 6391, just saw your text. We'll get to it in the next segment here because want to talk about the Summer League. And it's fortuitous that I delayed talking about Summer League until today because Kyle Filipowski was named the Las Vegas Summer League MVP, or the NBA 2K26 or whatever. His name, the official name, is named after those 2K games. And Kyle Filipowski averaged like 29 points a game. Absolutely balled out. Like 29 points, 8 rebounds. Got a decent handful of assists. And to me, and he also had Cody Williams balling out. And so to me, when I looked at Kyle Filipowski and his performance, and I had a chance to chat with a couple of people, just casually talking about Summer League, talking about the Jazz, because I got a lot of Jazz fans in my friends and family. We'll talk about them. And the initial comment I had, and mind you, I have to put an asterisk on any of my comments because the Vegas Summer League happened while I was out of office, so I didn't watch any of the games. I just see the stats. I went back to try and watch highlights to get some idea of what scoring plays he was making. And again, throughout all of this, my overwhelming impression of Kyle Filipowski is that I worry that people are overinflating what he's done and what he can potentially become. Because people see 29 points a game over a 5-game stretch. And even when they see what he did late in the season last year when he was playing a lot, the Jazz kept sitting all of their good players, and or at least their older veteran players. And so Kyle Filipowski ends up getting a bunch of time to just go out there and just go ham. He started the final 10 games that he played in. And I mean, he had a 30-point game, 30-point, 18 rebound game in the one game that the Jazz won in that stretch. Yeah, over the last 10 games, his last 11 appearances in the season, he's playing 29 minutes a game, and he averaged basically 15 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block per game. And then he goes out in the Summer League and, again, absolutely balled out in terms of scoring, in terms of production, all that jazz. And again, my biggest worry is like, okay, don't be overinflating what Kyle Filipowski has become. Don't become too infatuated with these stats. Now, that's not to say don't be encouraged by. I'm worried that I'm starting to. My whole point of the show is that I'm trying to douse the flames. First about Utah State's tight ends, now about Kyle Filipowski. But you should be encouraged by Kyle Filipowski playing well in Summer League and winning Summer League MVP. But let me give you the expectation that I think we should be having of Kyle Filipowski now. And I'll do that just by naming off the last 10 Summer League MVPs. Actually, this will include Kyle Filipowski. So it's the 9. Well, technically it is 10 because they were co-MVPs one year. But you have Jalen Wilson. That was last year. And I'd kind of maybe cut that out just because it's 1 year removed. Guys in Summer League, they need some more time to be developing. But so yeah, Jalen Wilson last year. Then you have Cam Whitmore, Keegan Murray. You had co-MVPs Davian Mitchell and Cam Thomas in 2021. You skipped the 2020 season because we didn't have one that year for, obvious reasons. 2019, you had Brandon Clark. 2018, Josh Hart. 2017, Lonzo Ball. Tyus Jones in 2016, and Kyle Anderson in 2015. And I just listed off 10, if you include Kyle Filipowski, I guess that's 10 or 11 players that are all rotation players in the NBA. Some of them are pretty good rotation. Some of them are starters. Josh Hart was a starter, played like 37 minutes a game. He was playing for Tom Thibodeau, so everyone who's a starter is playing like 40 minutes a game. But he's on an Eastern Conference Finals team. Keegan Murray, he's a starter for the Kings. So you have some starters. You have some guys who have maybe been starters at one point. Brandon Clark was, kind of a starter at one point, although he's kind of shifted more toward the bench, and he's been fading a little bit this stage of his career. But I think he might have also been a second-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Lonzo Ball injuries have derailed his career, but when he was doing a little better and actually on the floor, he was, starting caliber. Kyle Anderson, he's had a pretty decent career, mostly off the bench. But this is the kind of player that I'm looking at Kyle Filipowski to be. He has proved he belongs in the NBA one way or another. And he should be a good player. He's like a fringe starter, which for the 32nd overall pick last year, that's pretty dang good. To be the 32nd overall pick, at that point, you're worse than a coin flip chance of even really making an impact in the NBA. And Kyle Filipowski is going to have a 10-year career in the NBA. Maybe more. Maybe slightly more, slightly less. Just kind of depends on how his fortunes go. But let's not be projecting Kyle Filipowski as a star of, if the Jazz end up in 4 or 5 years being a contending team. If we make that assumption that, they're going to have a contending team one way or the other, Kyle Filipowski is not going to be the key player. Could he be a starter? Could he be a key 6th or 7th man? Absolutely. Could he be the kind of guy who contributes in a serious way toward a championship? I definitely think so. And that's what he's proving. He's one of those guys that, it's the kind of guy that I talk about when I say championships aren't won by your 3 best players. They're won by your guys 4 through 9 on your roster. And Kyle Filipowski is one of those guys who helps you win a championship as one of those guys 4 through 9 on your roster. He's not your star player. He might not even be a starter. But he's the kind of guy that I think can come in and do things you want. You wish he had a little bit more defense to him, but he also has way more offense than most reserve centers are going to give you. And he also rebounds pretty well. And if you can get your bench center to rebound at a high level, that's about 80% of what you want your backup center to do. If he's also scoring 9-10 points a game in 20-21 minutes, and also is able to pass the way Kyle Filipowski does, I mean, that honestly, the main reason why I felt the Kelly Olynyk comparisons are fitting is because Kyle Filipowski passes. There's 3-point shooting centers. There's not too many who pass the way that Olynyk and, we're seeing some from Kyle Filipowski. So be excited about Kyle Filipowski, but maybe don't go overboard yet. And then as a final note before we go to break, then we'll get back to talking Utah State football. I know maybe I should have just kept going on the Utah State football since I started out with that, but I really wanted to discuss NBA Summer League. Had that thought. But the other thing that I'm just really intrigued by is Cody Williams. In my head, I don't know if I've said it a whole lot out loud, but in my head, I've written off Cody Williams as a bust. I've already done that. Anything he does beyond wash out of the league in 2 years will be a plus to me, especially if he does it for the Jazz. But with him bouncing back in Summer League is giving me some hope. I'm not going to go all in. I'm not going to say he's proving the doubters wrong, because he's got to now do this in the NBA, the actual NBA, not Summer League, not NBA Summer League, the actual NBA league games. But much like the same logic applies to Kyle Filipowski. You can't completely discount a guy scoring 20-plus points in Summer League, which Kyle Filipowski did. I believe Cody Williams averaged just north of 20 points in the Vegas Summer League. You can't discount a guy scoring 20-plus points in Summer League by saying, well, it's Summer League. Because if it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. Sam Merrill went from a guy who was basically about to wash out of the league. He was on his last legs. Signed a 10-day contract with the Cavaliers after being a second-round draft pick several years back. He was basically about to be pushed to Europe. And then he absolutely balled out in Summer League. Ended up pushing him into an NBA rotation, into a playoff rotation. Maybe Cody Williams has done the same thing. Maybe something just clicked and he just got something to work. And that's what you open. With a guy like Cody Williams, who has the athletic potential that he does, that's something you can really hope that he can capitalize on in the future. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Summer League. We'll get back to talking Utah State football coming up next. 639-1 with the text, talking about Jalen Royals. Also fits in talking about Jordan Love. I believe I have an article coming out in Cache Valley Daily kind of summarizing what I'll be talking about next. Just with Jordan Love, he dropped in the NFL Top 100 player poll, but I think he's in line for a good season, a big bounce back year. And I'll talk about that next here on the Full Court Press.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning, Feel the Love is more than just heating and cooling. It means giving back. 5 complete HVAC systems will be donated to a deserving person or family. Feel the love and nominate that person or family in need at mtnvalleyhvac.com. Nominate prior to September 1st, 2025. See website for all details.
The Sportsman on Main Street is loaded with great clothing, shoes, and equipment. This is Mark inviting you to come in and check out our awesome store. For 71 years, we have outfitted you, whether you are going on the trail or to the theater. Trust me, you won't see yourself coming and going as we work hard to have some of the most unique clothing and shoes you will see anywhere. If it's a bike, skis, or a unique clothing and shoes, I promise we will take care of you only at the Sportsman on Main Street in historic downtown Logan with tons of free parking in the back.
No matter what the conditions, DD Auto and Salvage can get your vehicle up and off your property. Now is the time to plan to make extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage and moving that old vehicle. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy to get rid of your junker vehicles, paying you the most money possible. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
A diamond is forever and is perfect to represent your love. For those special occasions, give her a natural, one-of-a-kind diamond, as unique as she is. Our exclusive brand of Needham Brilliant Diamonds are white in color, high in clarity, and are recognized for their precise cut. These diamonds are natural, untreated, and are the real thing. Show her you care enough to give her a diamond, an investment for generations to come. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. SC Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
The patio is open. The chips are endless. Drinks on tap. You know it's got to be Cafe Sabor, Cache Valley's best Mexican restaurant, gold winner in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Experience Locals Day every Thursday with a huge burrito, endless chips and soda, only $7.95. That's a complete lunch for just $7.95. Finding any lunch under $10 is nearly impossible. Every Thursday, drinks, chips, and massive burrito, just $7.95. The patio, the sun, the fun at Cafe Sabor in the historic train station on 6 Weston Center in Logan.
July is the month of backyard barbecues, fireworks, and parades. With all the hustle and bustle, it's important to remember the true reason for celebration: independence. At Primrose Home Care and Hospice, we're devoted to helping you and your loved ones stay independent. Our bodies experience lots of changes in our lives, but that doesn't mean we have to change our life. Primrose is dedicated to helping you maintain a healthy, active lifestyle so you don't have to give anything up. After all, independence is our way of life. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call 787-1369. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, we're your home team.
It doesn't matter who you root for. The Full Court Press has all the high school sports covered. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Sports of Logan has a brand new service center that can handle any make, any model 100% of the time. The train technicians fucking talk. They know Can-Am, Kawasaki, KTM, Polaris, Sea-Doo, they know it all inside and out. Any brand, any model, They got the tools and experience to keep your ride in peak condition. Make sure to Google Young Power Sports of Logan for Cache Valley's premier power sports service department. So I put a pin in one of the texts, 6391, sent in a tweet, a report, but saying that he saw it on Twitter that Jalen Royals is taking reps with the ones with the Kansas City Chiefs in training camp. And I went and double-checked on this. I hadn't seen the report earlier today. I'd looked toward Jordan Love. I've been looking at that, and we'll talk about that in a second here. But Rashee Rice, to bring him up, he's important to the context here. He's one of the top receivers for the Chiefs, expected to be one of their top 2 receivers, along with Xavier Worthy. He got sentenced to 30 days in jail for his part in causing a car wreck in 2024. And there's also going to be a suspension. There's an expectation that he'll be suspended for a certain number of games, in addition to obviously a jail sentence, a brief one, but still a jail sentence. So that's going to shift guys up the depth chart. And Jalen Royals, the kind of optimistic view was that, can he snag that wide receiver 3 spot? At minimum, the wide receiver 4 spot. Get into the consistent rotation, even if it's semi-consistent. That was the key for Jalen Royals. With Rashee Rice going down, there's a possibility he could be wide receiver number 2 for a decent chunk of the season. And although Rice is participating in camp, there are, there's, again, stuff on Twitter indicating that Jalen Royals was playing with the first team offense. And there's a video clip of him catching passes, or at least a pass, from Patrick Mahomes. So that's a pretty dang good sign for Jalen Royals. And if he can get into the rotation consistently going, then the world's his oyster at that point. If you got Patrick Mahomes throwing to you, you've got everything you want taken care of. And, Andy Reid is your head coach. You can be an elite wide receiver. There are so many wide receivers who maybe they didn't play as well when they had other quarterbacks, but then you put them with, a high-level quarterback, and suddenly they take off. Like it happened to Wes Welker, where I think he was with the Dolphins or something like that before, and he's basically just a punt returner. That was all he did. And then he goes and plays for Tom Brady, and then Peyton Manning. And you also have a guy like Julian Edelman, who was a quarterback in college and at one point was playing defense on the Patriots. He was playing safety at one point in the early 2010s. And then, just start throwing passes to him. And he ends his career I think he leads the NFL in career either receptions or maybe even receiving yards in the playoffs, or maybe both. I can't remember. He has some major receiving record for, most such and such in the playoffs. Just go out there. If you've got an elite quarterback, do your job, and your elite quarterback will do his job, and you'll become an all-pro wide receiver. All-pro wide receivers tend to pop up around elite quarterbacks. They tend, and that's not a coincidence. When you've got a good quarterback and you're a good wide receiver, you can become an elite, wide receiver, at least by production, if not actually become an elite wide receiver, just by having that time to grow and develop with an elite quarterback. So that's what we can maybe hope from Jalen Royals. We don't hope it in terms of, hoping misfortune on other receivers. We're not hoping that they all get arrested or whatnot, but you hope that Jalen Royals is able to find his way toward the top of the Chiefs depth chart and prove a lot of people wrong, because being taken in the 4th round, I don't think he should have been picked that low. He's better than that. I think he's better than that. And I think a lot of people kind of recognize that on the outside. They're like, Jalen Royals fell that far, and they're saying the Chiefs got to steal. And I think they did. And that's not just the bias toward Utah State, me covering Utah State and thinking that. I really think that Jalen Royals could be a productive rookie receiver. But staying in the NFL and Aggies in the NFL, we got Jalen Royals, Bobby Wagner, and Jordan Love kind of carrying the hopes for Aggies in the NFL. And yesterday, it was announced by the NFL, NFL.com. I forget who's officially the one that announces the NFL Top 100. It's a list voted on by the players. They choose, and it's basically based off the previous season. They released it in the summer. It's based off the previous season. Kind of a summary of last year / maybe sort of prediction for next year. And Jordan Love, who this time a year ago was ranked 34th, this year he's ranked 68th. So he dropped 34 spots from 34 to 68. And it's a reflection of how he struggled in this past season. Now, a lot of that can be attributed to the injury that he suffered in week 1. Game one of the NFL season. I think it was game 1 of the NFL season. Or was it the Monday night game? When they played the Eagles. Actually, I think it was the Monday night game. And I think they were playing in Brazil, too, if memory serves. But he suffered an injury, held him out for 2 weeks. They kind of rushed him back a little bit. And he was just never quite, he wasn't the same as he was in 2023, where he had that kind of second half of 2023 where he was basically over the last 8-9 weeks of the NFL season, he was arguably the best quarterback. It was him and I'm suddenly forgetting the name of the 49ers quarterback, Broc Purdy. I think him and Jordan Love were basically the top 2 quarterbacks in basically every category. So he had that, and that brought a lot of hope, but then it kind of fizzled a little bit this past season. Again, probably largely because of that injury. It just kind of impacted him a little too much. But in addition to just having a full off season to heal and to make sure that he can actually be the best version of himself, the Packers have done everything they could to give Jordan Love the weapons that he needs and the protection that he needs. Now, they did lose an offensive lineman. They lost their starting center. But they also gained, they signed an offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman. They're going to move some other pieces around at center. But they signed an interior offensive lineman, and then they drafted an offensive lineman in the second round who will likely end up as their starting right guard. So while they had some things to take care of on the offensive line, they worked to take care of those by signing a player to replace one of their losses, a 3-year starter. Who was it? What was Aaron Banks. He's a 3-year starter on the interior offensive line for the 49ers. Then Anthony Belton, the offensive lineman they drafted in the second round. So they've done that. And they've also got Josh Jacobs, former All-Pro, who's coming off of rushing for 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns, who also caught 36 passes for 340 yards. He's coming back. So you got a good running back. You got an offensive line that they should be stable at. And then they went out and tried to get as many wide receivers as they could to bolster that wide receiver core, which they need because Christian Watson, their third leading receiver, he tore his ACL in the second to last week of the season. So he's going to be out until at least November. He had 600 yards last year. He's their third leading receiver. And so they needed not only to replace that, but to try and upgrade, which they went out and for the first time since forever. And I do mean since it was 20 plus years. First time they selected a wide receiver in the first round. They took Matthew Golden. Then in the third round, they took Savion Williams. Then they signed McCole Hardman. So the Packers have been doing everything they could and everything they can to stabilize the offensive line, retain a good running back, add production, talent, youth, potential to that wide receiver room. The Packers are setting up Jordan Love as best as they possibly can. Now, whether things work out, maybe Jordan Love suffers another injury, which, heaven forbid, that would be terrible. But as long as luck doesn't fail Jordan Love, he's going to have a good season this upcoming year. He's got a good receiving tight end. He's got a good offensive line. He's got a good running back. You got a well-run franchise there. Jordan Love has all the tools around him to succeed. It's much like I talk about with Jalen Royals. Everything he needs to succeed around him is there. He can't blame anybody else. Jordan Love can't blame anybody else. Maybe you can blame luck. Last year there was some bad luck with the injury. Maybe you can blame that. And maybe that could happen again this year. But Jordan Love, you're not going to blame this year on bad wide receivers, bad offensive line, bad running back, bad coaching. It's going to be on Jordan Love, for better or worse. But based on what we've seen of Jordan Love, his potential and what he does when he's healthy, I have every expectation that Jordan Love's going to have a good season. Some people want to pick him as an MVP candidate. I don't know if we'll go that far. Sometimes MVPs come out of nowhere. And maybe we could look back and say, of course, Jordan Love was going to win MVP. He had all these things set up for him. Maybe that's what we're saying 8 months from now. But at the very least, I expect Jordan Love to have a Pro Bowl season. He'll be pushing all pro. Who knows? Maybe he's pushing for MVP, especially if the Packers have a great overall season. We're going to take another break. We'll come back, talk more sports here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Who do you turn to if you want to change out your wood or pellet stove? Advanced Fireplace and Stove. They were voted the gold medalist for Best of Northern Utah for the 5th year in a row in the fireplace retrofit category. Be ready when the government's next wood and pellet replacement incentives pop up. Advanced Fireplace can help you navigate the paperwork. For more information, call Advanced Fireplace and Stove, 752-7272. Online at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
Express Tires for less.
Safety and comfort on the road are Express Tires' top priority. As a Point S team member, count on peace of mind with an inclusive warranty that includes nationwide protection. Any brand, any size, better pricing. No appointment necessary on the highway at 3200 North Main.
Express Tires for less.
Les Olson IT structured cabling is second to none. Tired of old and inefficient cabling? Have an upgrade or remodel planned? Building a new network from the ground up? We offer the very best in low voltage cabling installation, including data, phone, fiber optic, and more. Ask us how to get your free consultation today.
Les Olson IT.
Need a reliable partner for your medical needs? Look no further than Triton Medical and Transportation. We offer top quality medical soft goods right here in your community. From incontinence supplies and oxygen needs to medical transportation. Whatever you need to stay comfortable and healthy, we've got you covered. Trust Triton Medical and Transportation, caring for our community with every step, every mile. Call us today at 435-557-6687 or visit us online at mytritonsupply.com. Triton Medical and Transportation, because your health matters.
Honey, the garage door won't close again. It's the sun hitting the sensors. I just fixed this.
Toilet paper rolls are not a fix. Is there something we can do?
Actually, yeah. Advanced Garage Door has these new sunshades that block direct light from the garage door sensors. Let me give Mason a call.
Is your garage door not closing? We can fix that. Call Advanced Garage Door at 435-255-6725. That's 435-255-6725. Or visit us at advancedgaragedoors.com.
Girls, insist he take you to Jarek's. Picking out your wedding ring is an experience you will never forget. Come to a place where the mood is right and the setting is perfect for romance. Jarek's Fine Jewelry in Logan. The perfect collection of memorable designs, classic creation, and modern marvels. If you want an intimate, romantic experience you will never forget, then insist he takes you to Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Make it special, make it Jarek's at 930 North Main in Logan.
Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Make it special, make it Jarek's.
Join the show by calling 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Conditioning wants you to feel the love as they give away and install 5 new furnace and air conditioners to families in need. Mountain Valley Heating and Air is donating HVAC systems, equipment, materials, and installation services to help deserving families who need a little extra support, and they need your help. You can nominate a family in need. The nominations are open. They're open through August 31st, and in September and October, they'll pick at least 5 families from those nominations, and you can nominate somebody by going to mtnvalleyhvac.com. That's mtnvalleyhvac.com, and you click the Feel the Love tab, and you can go nominate somebody, and Mountain Valley Heating and Air will be installing 5 new furnace and air conditioners for those families in need. So rolling on here on the Full Court Press, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. You can text in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. Been talking Utah State football, both in college right now and in the pros. Of course, sticking with Utah State sports as we typically always do. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about NIL Go for like a couple of days in a row, where there was a memo sent out by the College Sports Commission where they were basically trying to crack down on NIL collectives. And it all stems from what's seeming to be a push by College Sports Commission, NCAA, I forget who's in charge anymore. But they're trying to push universities, schools, away from paying athletes through NIL. Get them away from outsourcing the payment of athletes. Get them away from outsourcing that payment to, collectives. They, legalize revenue sharing, and the NCAA wants the universities paying its athletes through revenue sharing. They don't, they open Pandora's box on NIL and the collectives, and they're trying to close it, which good luck, but they're doing their darndest to try and close it. And I can at least applaud the effort, even though I pretty much predicted that NIL Go would stumble at the first hurdle. And this maybe was the first hurdle. Maybe, we'll see. But the memo, again, a couple weeks ago, basically was the College Sports Commission saying, and through their enforcement and through the memo, basically what they were saying was, look, if you're paying an athlete and you're an NIL collective, we're going to deny it. Because according to the College Sports Commission, NIL collectives don't serve a valid business purpose, is the term they were using. Because they're saying that even though like collectives kind of functioned like a business in some ways, they sell merchandise, they set up events, they collect money, but the interpretation from the College Sports Commission was that it was different from a business who might do those same things like sell merchandise or host events or different things like that, where with the business, you're taking money from people or, you're exchanging goods and services for people's money, you're not just taking it. They're doing that to, run a business, pay employees, and, obviously pay the owner. That's the end goal for a guy who owns a business. But NIL collectives, they're not paying employees. The athletes aren't their employees. At least Utah State's athletes aren't considered Blue A collective employees. On the tax filing of the Blue A collective, it says all of their money, basically all of their money, save for a handful of expenses for like office supplies and advertising and whatnot. Basically like 98% of their money. Minus minimal expenses. All of their money is going to non-employees. It's that one line in there that's I forget the exact wording, but non-employees. The athletes, that's who they're paying. And so the Blue A collective isn't raising money to pay employees and its owners. None of the heck, I don't even know if the Blue A collective technically has employees. It has like volunteers. They're all unpaid. Nobody gets paid. The people running the Blue A collective. So the Blue A Collective, and like most NIL collectives, their board of directors, their employees, their volunteers, whatever, none of them are getting paid. Their whole purpose is raise money, organize events, sell things, do all this stuff, and pay non-employees. And the interpretation was that wasn't a valid business purpose. And that was kind of the way that, again, the College Sports Commission, the NCAA, they're basically trying to make that argument that because, again, in their interpretation, there's not a valid business purpose, they're just going to deny every single NIL deal, again, through the clearinghouse of NIL Go, which is supposed to, you have to submit your NIL deal to NIL Go, and they'll allow it or reject it based on these criteria. And they were basically rejecting all of these submitted NIL deals that had anything to do with an NIL collective. And they were using that logic that I just went over and hopefully explained well enough. But that caused an uproar, and it caused an issue for Utah State because despite Utah State being opted into the House settlement, as Dalton Forsyth, the director or the head honcho at the Blue A Collective, he was on our show a few weeks ago, as he said, Utah State, they're opted into the House settlement, but they're not using revenue sharing, at least in the near future. They're paying their athletes through NIL. And so it caused a problem for Utah State because every single NIL deal through the Blue A Collective was just getting rejected outright. Even though Forsyth was showing the receipts saying, look, here's the athlete. They're getting paid $2,000 to publish like 30 social media posts and make like 4 or 5 appearances. Work for pay, not just being handed money because you exist like some collectives were doing. And those deals were being rejected. Well, it seems like those deals are now probably going to be accepted because as Ross Dellinger was reporting today on Yahoo Sports, the lawyers, the attorneys for the House plaintiffs from the House settlement, the guys who were suing the NCAA, they got after the NCAA and the College Sports Commission for this enforcement that NIL Go was using, where they were denying all of these deals from the collectives just because they were collectives. And the NCAA has backed down, like they always do. They backed down. They didn't want to face any more legal issues. So, and basically, the agreement they came to was they're gonna relax that approach. They're not gonna just deny deals just because they're being offered by an NIL collective, and hopefully that's not going to throw, that'll take the wrench out of the spokes, take the wrench that got thrown in out to Utah State's, their payment, function, their system that they'd set up. Because they've been raising a lot more NIL. They've been raising their budget to pay these athletes. And they were at risk of, are they still going to be able to pay these athletes because the NCAA wouldn't let them? But it seems now that the NCAA is actually going to let Utah State pay its athletes through NIL. So for a minute, there were some worries, but through the legal process, billable hours remain undefeated, all that fun stuff. Things should be fine for Utah State. All right, we're going to take one more break. We'll talk about Aggies in the Summer League. How did they do? Meant to talk about it yesterday. We'll talk about it a bit today. What's the future for these players? Not all of them did fantastic. So we'll talk about that next here on the Full Court Press.
When grid failures and severe weather cause power outages, your business might take a hit, or at home, you could lose your refrigerated food storage. Generac Standby Power Solutions help ensure an uninterrupted power supply. Generac is the #1 brand of standby generators. Get yours today from Golden Spike Electric, your trusted source for safety and security. Golden Spike Electric, powering your peace of mind. Online at gsegenerators.com or call 257-3016. They also service other models.
Hi, I'm Emily Peterson, founder of Serenoni Luxury Blankets and Gifts. My husband Nathan and I started Serenoni right here in Logan over 18 years ago to raise money for our daughter's surgery. And thanks to this incredible community, we've grown one blanket, one family at a time. We still design, personalize, and ship every order from our Logan warehouse because this isn't just where we started, it's home. Come shop our new store on 10th West, right next to iFit in Logan. Serenoni, born in Logan, wrapped in gratitude.
Make it 5 years in a row. Advanced Heating and AC is honored to be named gold medalist for the best of Northern Utah in the AC HVAC category. They thank you for your support and vote of confidence in their company. You have many choices when it comes to your home's heating and air conditioning system. Make sure you choose the 5-time gold medal winning company, Advanced Heating and AC. Call 752-7272 or stop by their showroom west of DI, online at advancedheating-ac.com.
While you're making memories this summer, on the lake, in the mountains, or around the fire pit, Adams Wealth Advisors is here to help you plan for days to come. Adams Wealth Advisors loves being your trusted neighbor and believes that smart financial planning is the key to a life well lived. Whether you're nearing retirement or just getting started, let Adams Wealth Advisors build a plan that gives you peace of mind today and tomorrow. Google Adams Wealth Advisors for a free consultation today. Local roots, lifelong guidance.
Hi, this is Robbie with LSS Insurance. If you're about to turn 65, the Medicare phone calls, mailers, and emails can be unreal. Out-of-market telemarketers simply do not understand Utah, Idaho, or your individual situation. We have real answers and real solutions with local help. At LSS Insurance, we are your health insurance specialists. Call us 752-9493. Having local help makes all the difference, and there's no cost to you. Call 752-9493 or visit lssins.com.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. Covenant House is the national leader providing safe housing for youth, 50 years strong. Every youth who walks into Covenant House gets clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. So, look closer at Covenant House and help us fight youth homelessness. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
It's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
The weather is hotter, and Napa has what you need to be prepared. Napa Legend and Napa AAA batteries get a $25 rebate on Bosch lithium-ion batteries. Napa can even test your battery, make sure it actually needs to be replaced. You can get fuel treatments from Standardine, Howes, Seafoam. It's all on sale for $8.49 a can. Mention this ad, and you can get Napa 15W Premium Diesel Oil for just $11.99 a gallon. Cash and carry only. All that and plenty more at your locally owned Preston of Providence Napa Auto Parts locations. Finishing things up on the Full Court Press here on a Tuesday. Talked about former Aggies in the Summer League. Published about this on Cache Valley Daily, but just kind of going over the performances of some of the former Aggies in Summer League, and unfortunately wasn't great. Some of the guys who played volume minutes were Stephen Ashworth and Darius Brown, but they both struggled with efficiency. It's Darius Brown and Max Shulga. They both averaged just over 21 minutes per game. Darius Brown, weirdly inefficient. This is a guy who I think shot 50% in Summer League last year and was doing pretty well for Cleveland's G League team this year. But in 4 games, he did average 4.5 rebounds and almost 4 assists. But he shot 17% from the field, 7% from 3. Just could not buy a bucket in Summer League. Distributed well. I think played decently well overall, but yeah, shot making wasn't quite there. Max Shulga, kind of in a similar department. He averaged 5 points, 1.5 rebounds, also 3.8 assists. But he shot 24% from the field and 21% from 3. So a couple of former Aggies playing a decent number of minutes, not getting it done efficiency-wise. Though perhaps some potential there. Great Osibor. He actually had, I think he had the best individual game of anybody because he had like 17 points, 5 rebounds in one of the games for the Houston Rockets in Summer League. And Osibor averaged 16 minutes per game. Shot decently well, 46%. Averaged 7.5 points, almost 5 rebounds. Then you got guys like Stephen Ashworth, who he either played a decent amount or didn't play at all. That was kind of, and that can happen to some players in Summer League. You'll play 15 minutes in one game and 2 minutes in the next. That's something that can happen to you. But Ashworth averaged about 4 points, 2.5 assists, only shot 33% from the field. Josh Aduje, he was also very much up and down, but he played in the Sacramento. I think it was Sacramento. I suddenly forget. It was the California Classic. I forget exactly where it was played, but he played 2 games there. Then he played in 2 games in the Vegas Summer League. He shot 58% from the field, 50% from 3, but he only played 7 minutes per game. So we'll see how these players do. If some of them kind of latch on to G League teams, Darius Brown and Max Shulga should be able to. I think Stephen Ashworth as well. Stephen Ashworth signed an Exhibit 10 deal. Shulga's on a 2-way contract with the Celtics. Darius Brown could probably end up back with a Cleveland Charge. That's where he spent last season. Osborne and Aduje, they didn't sign anything beyond signing with the Summer League, so I don't know if they'll stick with any G League organizations, but we'll probably have 3 former Aggies bouncing around the G League this next season. That's going to do it for us today. Make sure to tune in. Tomorrow we'll have more talking about local sports, including some talk about Utah State basketball. Make sure to tune in then.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. NBA Summer League is fun, but it's basketball in July. Highlights and hype, hot takes. So let's take a breath before we crown the next superstar. Every year, somebody goes for 30 points, and we convince ourselves we found the next hidden gem. Back in 2007, Marcus Banks dropped 42. Von Wayford, same summer, same scoring outburst. Neither sniffed an All-Star game. Just 2 years ago, Marcus Sasser poured in 40. Today he's a role player in Detroit. Summer League is a proving ground, but not the proving ground. It's a place where second-rounders get touches. Rookies shake off rust and coaching staff test lineups. That probably won't see the regular season. So enjoy it all. And just remember, success in July doesn't guarantee anything come October. If it did, Marcus Banks would be in Springfield by now. So watch with curiosity, but leave your crystal ball at home. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.